And we're live. What is happening, everybody? How we doing? We got a large Sunday slate, a lot bigger than normal, so excited to get into the breakdown with you guys. Got some games that are really sticking out from a pace aspect that we're definitely going to want to be targeting. Some injury news, all that fun stuff. We'll break it down game by game, giving you guys the top plays on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Patrick, how we doing today? Welcome into the live stream. Hope you're having a good day. We got some NFL playoff games going on, so I'm sure there's a lot of people watching that, but still covering some NBA for you guys today. So if you have any questions in the chat, please do ask. We're going to do a game-by-game breakdown on DraftKings. Then we're going to do a game-by-game breakdown on FanDuel. Anthony Davis ruled out Sunday. Latest piece of news that just came through for us. So yeah, let's get into it. Like I said, there's definitely some big-time pace-up games that we'll be targeting a lot on this slate with some heavy usage guys. So we'll talk about it as we go along here, but kind of some more obvious spots on this slate compared to some other slates that we'll talk about. But it's a 9-gamer, plenty of options to choose from. Should be able to really like all of your lineups that you're able to put together for this one. So let's talk about it. First game, LA Lakers taking on Miami. We got 6 o'clock lock tonight, a little bit earlier than typically seen. And as far as anyone in this game right now comes in with not the fastest pace in the world whatsoever compared to the rest of the slate. Only a 214 over-under. 2.5 point spread in favor of Miami. So my interest here will be somewhat limited, to be honest with you. Looking at my sheet, not too intrigued here outside of going to a Gabe Vincent at 5-1. I think he really stands out as a pretty great play over here on DraftKings. For his price tag and his current role on the Miami side at a 5-1 price tag. We've seen him play 37 and 38 minutes the last 2 times out. 31.5 and 30.5 DraftKings points in those minutes. He's putting up 0.82 DK points from out in the season. I've got him projected to play right around 35 minutes in this one. At that price tag, even though it's not the fastest paced game in the world, it is going to make a lot of sense to be getting some exposure to a Gabe Vincent on this slate tonight. And I think he's by far my favorite option from this game. Overall, like I said, I think there's going to be some other games with a lot better fantasy point environments, but another guy that I'll be talking about with a big bump up now would be Max Struss. So we gave Vincent at 5-1. Max Struss at 4-7 are the 2 guys that are really standing out to me in this game on the Miami side, with there being no Kyle Lowry, with there being no Tyler Hero. Those guys on the Miami side are really going to be where you're looking to. And then, of course, the pay-up options in a Bam Adebayo and a Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is going to be a fantastic option. Going to take on a lot of usage now, of course, with there being no Lowry, with there being no Hero. And we know the Lakers have been bad all season long defensively, if you didn't know that. Over here on my Patreon premium content stuff, you can see that the Miami Heat right now the Los Angeles Lakers are graded out as the 21st best team in points per possession rank, 17th in half-court points per play, 26th in offensive rebounding percentage rank, and 25th in putbacks as well. So really going to be a good spot for Jimmy Butler, really going to be a good spot for Bam Adebayo, and those other guys that we talked about, a Max Struss, a Gabe Vincent. So mainly loading up on the Miami side of this game. I don't really think it's worth paying up for LeBron James on this slate in a slower-paced game with his team being, kind of the same alignment that we've seen. We did get confirmation that Anthony Davis is out, so obviously that's going to help his case. If Anthony Davis was back in, that was going to hurt him even more. But overall, I don't think that I'm really looking to target the LA Lakers side of this one. I would definitely be looking to more so target the Lakers side. I'm sorry. I'd be looking to target the Lakers with the Miami side rather than targeting the Lakers. So Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, really going to like them. Gabe Vincent, Max Struss, Cody Martin, all of these guys, really the ones that you're looking to stack up on in this one. And all are looking at is pretty great plays. Like I said, overall, my projections right now, I can tell you that my 2 favorite options are going to be Max Struss and his counterpart in Gabe Vincent. Getting a lot of minutes, getting a lot more usage now in the Miami rotation. And definitely going to be some interesting plays. And then the obvious pay-ups, like I said, of a Jimmy Butler, of a Bam Adebayo, with all those guys being out. Going to be a lot more usage to go around with them. I have no issues with you going to a Duncan Robinson in tournaments. No issues with you going to a Caleb Martin in tournaments. Like I said, obviously, you can only play so many of these guys. There are only a couple or a few of them that are going to be able to get you there at their price tag. But the fact of the matter is you take Kyle Lowry out of the equation, you take Tyler Hero out of the equation. That is a lot of minutes and usage that is going to be going around on this team. So loading up on the Miami side for me with those pieces of value. PJ Tucker's listed as questionable. He's going to go through warm-ups before he goes. Obviously, if he's out as well, that's even more minutes that are going to be added on to the Max Struss, Caleb Martin, and those other wings. So that's a big piece of news. Regardless, really going to like Jimmy Butler, really going to like Bam Adebayo. Running it back on the other side with LeBron James and Russell Westbrook, much less of a priority for me, to be honest with you. I just don't really think it's too necessary. with these other fast-paced games that we're going to talk about later on in the slate. So for me, really looking to load up on the Miami side. The LA Lakers side, not too interested in this one. So second game on the slate, we have Chicago taking on Orlando as far as a total in this game. This game comes in right now with a total of a 216 over-under, 3.5 point spread in favor of the Chicago Bulls. Chicago going to be getting a great matchup here, taking on an Orlando Magic team that has been terrible all season defensively. And we know with there being no Zach LaVine, no Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic getting a lot of usage, a lot of upside. And like I said, this matchup is fantastic. Looking at my defensive half-court putbacks tool here, you can see that the Orlando Magic are 26th overall in points per possession rank, 25th in half-court points per play allowed in the half-court setting, 18th in half-court percentage of plays rank. And when you go over to the defensive transitions sheet that I have, Orlando really bad in that as well, allowing they're 26th overall in points per play rank in transition, 25th in transition frequency allowed. So this Chicago Bulls team should be able to get out in transition, should be able to score on the half court, all the above, taking on this Orlando squad. And of course, you add in the added usage for a Vucevic, for a DeMar DeRozan at 9-1 and 8-9, with there being these other two studs out. They're going to be two of the top plays on the slate for me. So we talked about that Miami Heat game. And the same can be said for the Chicago Bulls side here. Tons of usage opening up, tons of upside, and a tremendous matchup. Both of these teams really standing out right off the bat. Really like Chicago, really like Miami. Makes a lot of sense to be getting exposure to those guys. On the other side of this game, I think Cole Anthony's really cheap now at 6'4". I think he's becoming really interesting to be targeting. I know his production hasn't been the best as of late, but he's really grading out as a fantastic play for me right now in my projection model at a 6'4" price tag. Putting up 1.12 DK points per minute. Expected to play in the mid-30s in this one, lower 30s. So everything kind of matches up for him to have a fantastic game at his price tag. And the same can be said for his teammate in Jalen Suggs. So Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs really standing out to me in this game at their price tags. 5.5 for Jalen Suggs. He has been phenomenal as of late. 35 DraftKings points, 46 DraftKings points. Going to be a guy that I'm certainly wanting to be getting exposure to in this game. So overall in this game, those are the guys that stand out to me the most. The only other guy that I would mention is I do think that Achuma Okeke is somewhat interesting at a 4.2 price tag here in this one. And of course, you could definitely be looking to some center minutes in a Mo Bamba. All these guys are priced very friendly, so friendly enough to where I'd be willing to get some exposure here. 5.4 for Mo Bamba. We've seen him go out there, put up 49 DraftKings points last time out, only 25 minutes. I think that he will start to see his minutes ramp up, working his way back from that injury. And like I said, my two favorite plays on the Orlando side are going to be a Cole Anthony and a Jalen Suggs. Just really like their price tags and their upside for their price tags, so would certainly be willing to go there. On the Chicago side, paying up for a Nikola Vucevic and a DeMar DeRozan with no Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball makes a lot of sense in this one. Portland taking on Toronto, the next game on the slate. This game right now comes with a 214.5 over under 8.5 point spread in favor of the Toronto Raptors. So expected to stay somewhat close. The Raptors could possibly blow this Portland Trailblazers team out. We've seen that happen a lot to them so far. They finally did get CJ McCollum back, which is of course going to help their case for keeping these games close. At a 7.5 price tag, he's priced very reasonably. Taking on a Toronto squad that has not been the greatest defensively. Traditionally in the past, they have been. This year, looking at the stats, Toronto really not grading out as the best team in the league. Middle of the pack, 16th overall in points per possession rank. They're ranking 27th in offensive rebounding percentage rank and 28th in putbacks as well. So I think this could be a really great spot to be targeting some bigs in a Yusuf Nurkic. Obviously, his upside has gone up a ton since Damian Lillard's been out. Saw him put up 38 minutes last time out, 62.75 DraftKings points. Great stuff. And the numbers are telling us that Toronto has been a great place to go, targeting bigs for those putbacks, for those rebounds, for that upside. So Yusuf Nurkic really going to grade out as a decent play for me at the center position. The only counter argument to him is, of course, this is a 214.5 over under. We're going to talk about some other games later on. A 235 over under for that Atlanta Hawks Charlotte game. A 222.5 for the San Antonio Spurs Sixers game. 236 for that Minnesota Brooklyn game that I'm really going to like. So I guess that's your counter argument here, but from a defensive aspect and from how bad this team has been on the glass for Toronto, Yusuf Nurkic really going to be in a good spot here to put up some big points, big boards, all that fun stuff that we're looking to target in our fantasy lineups, of course. So Yusuf Nurkic, I would certainly be willing to get some exposure to. As far as anyone else in this game, I mean, Portland's been really bad defensively, like one of the worst in the league as far as how they're grading out. They're third last in the league, 28th overall in points per possession rank, 29th in half-court points per play. So we know the Toronto Raptors side, they get a lot of really solidified minutes. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, all these guys are going to play in the upper 30s, if not 40 minutes or more. So obviously, whenever you get the Toronto Raptors squad in a very good matchup, such as this one, taking on a Portland Trailblazers squad, you will have some interest in them. It's just a matter of, do we really want to pay these price tags for a VanVleet, for a Siakam, when we have some other guys that we can pay around the same price tag for that are getting a much bigger bump up in usage that we talked about, like a Chicago side, like a DeMar DeRozan, like a Vucevic, with there being no Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball, like on Miami side, and a Jimmy Butler and a Bam Adebayo, with there being no Tyler Hero and Kyle Lowry. That's where things become a little bit more difficult. They get the great matchup. I would limit my exposure here to one or two of these guys. I mean, OG Anunoby at 6'8", price very friendly for a guy that's going to play around 40 minutes. So I feel like mixing and blending some of these more mid-range plays would be a smart way to go on this slate, paying up for some of those other options that we talked about. Don't get me wrong, VanVleet and Siakam still going to be viable options. You might be able to get them lower owned than they should be in this spot, but there's just some other sides that, you know, they're getting a much bigger bump up in usage with their team dealing with injuries. The Toronto side, they're looking pretty healthy right now, so a little bit dicey there. Anthony Simmons is going to take a big hit with there being CJ McCollum back. That they still are the 1-2 punch. So I'd be really loading up on the Portland side if you're looking to go to an Anthony Simmons, a CJ McCollum, and a Yusuf Nurkic. Those are the three guys that are really going to be dominating the usage. Those are the guys that we're looking to. Everyone else, kind of filler spots, but I think you're getting a little bit cute on a slate like this with all these games. Atlanta taking on Charlotte. Next game on the slate, guys. If you are enjoying this stream, would be a great thing if you would take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Hopefully you tuned into yesterday's video and played some Rashawn Holmes. I didn't upload a video earlier, but if you're new to the channel, I do give a lock of the night every video. Rashawn Holmes was my lock of the night last time out. Absolutely killed it. At a 43 price tag, he went out there and put up 32.25 DraftKings points. So no video earlier in the day for me. With the Sunday going on, the crazy NFL slate and all that fun stuff with the playoffs, I decided to just do a live stream, but we'll be back with the typical video tomorrow, giving you guys my lock of the night as well. So if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. I'll be here all NBA DFS season long, breaking down these NBA DFS slates to help you guys become better NBA DFS players, help you win some money night in and night out. Let's talk about this next game. This one's going to be a fun one. A 235 over under with a 3-point spread in favor of the Charlotte Hornets. So expected to be a very fast, up-paced game in this one. And for that reason, obviously, we're going to have a lot of interest in this one. The only downside, I guess you could say, is the usage is a little bit spread thin on both sides. We did get confirmation that Clint Capella is going to stay on a minutes restriction in this one. So should split work at center with a Okongwu. So he's probably the first guy that I would say you're not going to be playing in this game. 7-3 for Clint Capella on a minutes limit is going to be a no thank you from me. So he's the first guy I would not be looking to do this game. But I think the pay-up options are fantastic. Trae Young at 10-3. You take Clint Capella out of the equation a little bit for the limited minutes. You put him in a fast up-tempo game against the Charlotte Hornets team that has been my favorite team to target all season long. These Charlotte Hornets have just been printing you money if you've been targeting them. Would encourage you to do so. Right now, they grade out as the 23rd best team in points per possession rank, 25th overall in offensive rebounding percentage rank, 26th in points per miss rank. And as far as transition is concerned on defense, Charlotte, also a team that I'm not afraid to target. They're 21st overall in points per play rank in transition. All these things adding up. Trae Young going to be a fantastic play. If there's ever a time for him to reach his ceiling, 70, 80 DraftKings points, this is the spot that he can do it. So certainly making a lot of sense to be getting some Trae Young exposure for me in this game. And with these other guys on the Atlanta side possibly being out, Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari, obviously that's some big news. Kevin Huerter did go through shoot-around, so I would expect him to be good to go. As far as the latest update on a Danilo Gallinari, he also went through shoot-around, so I'm anticipating that these guys are both in for the the Atlanta Hawks today. And with that being said, they're both going to be great options. Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter at 5-2 and 5-1, playing a lot of minutes against a Charlotte Hornets team that has not been good at all. Gonna load up on them. Absolutely love it. DeAndre Hunter at 5-1. That's a very, very cheap price tag for a guy in this type of game environment. As far as Kevin Huerter at 5-2, once again, very, very cheap guy. If you're telling me that I can pay, $5K to get exposure to two guys that are going to play 35 plus minutes against a Charlotte Hornets team, and both are very good fantasy point producers, I'm going to be all in. Pulling up the Atlanta Hawks here on my screen as far as how they've been producing on a permanent basis, these guys. I mean, DeAndre Hunter putting up 0.71 DK points per minute. Not the best, but at a 5-1 clip in this game environment. I'll take it and run with it. Kevin Huerter, same thing can be said for him. 5-2, 0.76 DK points per minute. Then you have John Collins with a minutes limit on Clint Capella at 6'9". He's putting up 1.06 DK points per minute on the season. And you factor in that Clint Capella is not going to be out there for his whole allotment of minutes. Of course, that's going to make John Collins get more center run. When he gets more center run, he's going to have a lot more rebounding upside. a lot more scoring upside, all of the above. The only thing that could possibly go wrong with John Collins, which he has been somewhat notorious for in the past, is the foul trouble. He does have a tendency of getting himself in foul trouble, as is proof these last 2 games. He's gotten himself, 5 personal fouls and 6 personal fouls. But other than that, the price tag has continued to drop. We've seen his price tag come down from, in the upper 7K range, now down to a 6-9K range. And like I said, Clint Capella's on a minutes limit. He's going to get more minutes at the center position. You're practically getting a starting center at the power forward position in one of the best game environments on the slate with a 235 over under. So absolutely love loading up on some John Collins in this one. And I would advise you to be getting a lot of exposure to this game overall. So especially those guys that are priced so cheaply. Like I said, a Kevin Huerter or DeAndre Hunter. Bogdanovich is out. So even if Danilo Gallinari comes back, there's still going to be plenty of minutes and usage to go around for all these guys. So all these guys in the 4 to 5K range and the Atlanta Hawks in this game environment are just fantastic guys to be getting in your lineups, to be affording to pay up for some of these top pay up options that we've talked about on the slate so far. Would absolutely love it. The Charlotte side's not quite as easy to determine who we're going to with all these guys being healthy. We have Miles Bridges on the Charlotte Hornets playing a lot of minutes, a lot of usage. We have LaMelo Ball, we have Terry Rozier, we have Gordon Hayward, we have Kelly Oubre, all of which are going to be great options. We also have a PJ Washington at 4-3 who's very cheap and could get a lot of run in a game that could possibly go more small. Like I said, Clint Capella probably going to be, not probably, we know he's going to be limited in his minutes. For that reason, there's a far more likelihood that this game goes a little bit small. We see more John Collins at the 5, which could lead to some more minutes for PJ Washington. So if you want to take some risks on him in tournaments, certainly makes a lot of sense to me and would be something that I would have no issues with whatsoever. And then mixing and blending these Charlotte guys. Like I said, not quite as easy to be determining who we're going to, but once again, all very good fantasy point producers, all going to get plenty of minutes. You can be taking advantage of these cheaper guys in a Gordon Hayward at 6'2". That is a phenomenal price tag for a guy that produces at a high rate. We talked about these Atlanta Hawks guys pulling up the Charlotte Hornets side of things as far as how they're producing on a permanent basis. You can see LaMelo Ball putting up 1.4 DK points per minute. That is phenomenal in a game environment like this. Would make a ton of sense to be loading up on some LaMelo Ball. I know he's been a little bit underwhelming in some of these games as of late. 35, 46, 46. We haven't really seen that huge game out of him. But the fact of the matter is, with that all being said, his price tag has now come down all the way from the 9K range. We were seeing him priced up all the way to like 9.6. Now it's down to an 8.2K price tag. And he's in a 235 over-under, a 3-point spread. It's expected to stay close. Both these teams are terrible defensively. I mean, it's just proof. When looking at my defensive half-court and putback sheet, you can see Charlotte's 23rd in the league. Atlanta's second to last. They're 29th overall in transition points per play rank, 29th in, points per possession rank in transition, they're 29th, and they're 29th in transition points per play rank. So this is just going to be an absolute track meet. This is going to be fantasy points galore. I would highly recommend that you're loading up on this game. And it's all going to start with LaMelo Ball and Trae Young. Those two guys, in my opinion, have the highest upside. They're both the point guards for their respective teams. A lot of on-ball handling responsibilities, a lot of scoring responsibilities. They're going to get the assist upsides. They're going to score buckets. They're going to get peripheral stats as well. We know LaMelo's a great rebounder. We know that they can both dish out assists. And you put them in this kind of a track meet setting, going to make a lot of sense to be getting exposure to these guys. So we spent a lot of time in that game, but for good reason, especially these guys in the low 5K range, 4K range. Like I said, that's just too cheap. Load up on it. Love John Collins with Clint Capella being loaded. Load up on some Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward. Just get a lot of exposure here. Really like it. One of the 2 highest total slates on the games on the slate. We'll talk about the other one in the Minnesota-Brooklyn game, but this is one of the best games. Be getting a lot of exposure there. Next game on the slate, we have Philadelphia taking on the San Antonio Spurs. As far as a total in this game comes in with a 222.5 over-under, 1-point spread in favor of the Philadelphia 76ers. So expected to be a pretty fast, up-paced game here, expected to stay close. We know that on the Philadelphia side, there is no Seth Curry, there is no Shake Milton. So that, of course, is going to make Isaiah Joe, Furkan Korkmaz much better options. For me, Isaiah Joe's just really not a good fantasy point producer, so he's going to be a fade for me. I know he's minimum salary, but, I mean, we've seen him get opportunities the last couple of games, 12, 7, 5 DraftKings points. If you want to go there, could he have a huge game? Sure. For me, I'm not really going to be prioritizing getting Isaiah Joe in my lineups. I'd much rather go to a Tyrese Maxey at 6'2". 46 minutes last time out, 35 DraftKings points. A little bit underwhelming, but I'd expect him to be able to bounce back in this one with there being no Seth Curry, with there being No Shake Milton. He's going to have a lot of usage, and the same can be said for Furkan Korkmaz at a 4K price tag. 39 minutes, really underwhelming last time out as well, with only 12 DraftKings points. I think that is a bit of an outlier. I do think we could see these guys bounce back. They can both shoot the 3-ball. Looking at their permanent production on the season for this Philadelphia squad, we can see that overall they are pretty good fantasy point producers. Looking at the permanent production for a Furkan Korkmaz on the season, 0.78 DK points per minute. As far as Tyrese Maxey is concerned, he's putting up 0.86 DK points per minute. And then obviously with all these guys being off the court, their usage and their permanent production is just going to go up even more. And the same can be said for Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid. Obviously, they're the top 2 candidates on this team. We've talked about a lot of teams dealing with injuries, dealing with some guys that are going to get a big bump up in usage, and this is certainly another spot to be doing it. So Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, both guys that are going to have some huge upside with their team dealing with some injuries, both guys that I would be prioritizing. And we have plenty of value to be fitting these guys in. We talked about the cheap Atlanta guys in that fast up-tempo game. And, I mean, you should be really loving your lineups. Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris. But I would encourage you to be playing lineups where you're dealing with injuries on certain teams that are giving guys usage bumps, getting guys minutes bumps. Because we've already talked about so many different options on the slate. If you're not playing these guys that are getting minutes bumps and usage bumps, I don't know what you're doing. Because, I mean, you're setting yourself up to lose on the slate. So we talked about Miami. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, with there being no Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry. Also a Gabe Vincent. We talked about a Max Struss, a Cody Martin. All those guys going to make a lot of sense. Or Caleb Martin, I should say. Chicago taking on Orlando. And they're in a great matchup, too. The LA Lakers are really bad defensively, so I love targeting that. The same can be said for this next game. Chicago taking on Orlando. We know Nikola Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan are getting a big bump up in usage. Why is that? Because there's no Zach LaVine, no Lonzo Ball. So it makes a lot of sense to be getting a lot of exposure there to these 2 guys. So we talked about them. The next game, we have Portland taking on Toronto. This game, both teams are mostly healthy for the most part. So like I said, I don't really think you're taking advantage of too much outside of the fact that both teams have a pretty solidified rotation. Portland's been pretty bad defensively. Toronto's been pretty bad defensively. So if you want to go there, don't have an issue with it. I don't think it's quite as good as the other spots that we've mentioned with these teams dealing with more injuries. So decent game environment. Then you have Atlanta, Charlotte. Obviously, really fast, up-paced game. The biggest thing that stands out to me in this one that I touched on was the fact that Clint Capella is going to be limited in his minutes. So with that being said, John Collins is going to get more center run. He's going to have a lot more upside. He's taking on a Charlotte team that's really, really bad defensively. So once again, another spot where Capella's not out, but we're still dealing with some minutes limits, some things that we can take advantage of. But we do know that Bogdanovich is out, which is going to give more usage to some of those other guys that we talked about, like a Kevin Huerter, like a DeAndre Hunter, like a Danilo Gallinari. So once again, a spot where you can be taking advantage in a good matchup. Then we go to the Philadelphia-San Antonio Spurs game, and once again, we have a spot on the Philadelphia side specifically where we have injuries. There is no Seth Curry. There is no Shake Milton. So there is no Matisse Thybulle. There is no Danny Green. That's 4 guys. That's a big part of the rotation. So taking advantage of this, targeting Tyrese Maxey, targeting Furkan Korkmaz, targeting Tobias Harris, and targeting Joel Embiid is going to be very smart to be doing. And for that reason, I'm probably not going to be having too much exposure to the other side of these games. I mean, certainly, DeJounte Murray's been absolutely crushing it at 10-2 as of late. He's been one of the best fantasy point producers in the league. If you want to get exposure there, sure. But I just think it goes back to their teams looking pretty healthy. The Spurs, I mean, they have everyone in. They have Derek White, Doug McDermott, Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl, Devin Vassell off the bench, Lonnie Walker, Kate Bates-Diop, Eubanks. So, I mean, this is the type of team where it's not going to stand out to me nearly as much as these other teams we've discussed, because these teams are dealing with injuries. These teams are in good matchups. They're getting usage bumps. They're getting minutes bumps. Whereas these other guys are just kind of in their normal roles. So for me, not going to have as much interest there. I do have a lot of interest in targeting the Philadelphia side, however, with an Embiid, with a Tobias Harris, with a Tyrese Maxey, with a Furkan Korkmaz. Really going to make a lot of sense to me in this one. All grading out as fantastic plays for me on my sheet. And really going to be like getting exposure, especially Tyrese Maxey. I mean, Tyrese Maxey just looks like an absolute smash play. And the other guy that's really looking good to me is Georges Niang at 3.5. So I don't want to forget about him. Georges Niang really going to making a lot of sense with all these guys being out, with there being no Matisse Thybulle, with there being no Danny Green. Going to see a lot more minutes for him as well at a 3.5 price tag. And when looking at his permanent production on the season, you can see he's putting up 0.75 DK points per minute. So it's not as if he's a terrible fantasy point producer like an Isaiah Joe at 0.63. You know, we're at least dealing with 0.75 and above for him. And a really cheap price tag at 3.5. So I think Georges Niang is another guy that you should certainly be having some exposure to in this one. If you have any questions in the chat, guys, please do ask them. I'm here to help you out. If you're new to the channel, we'd really greatly appreciate it if you feel like this is providing you with any value. If you would take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Patrick in the chat says, let's get the likes up. I appreciate that, Patrick. Hopefully you're having a good day. And if you have not checked out the sponsor of the program, go ahead and check them out, guys. SuperDraft Pro. If you have not heard about SuperDraft Pro, SuperDraft Pro is changing the game over here. It is a referral-only type business where you can get access to free exclusive games, and you can only do so by being referred by a coach. I am a coach. I'm going to go ahead and put my link in the description for you guys. Or, I'm sorry, the link is in the description, but I'm going to be putting it in the chat as well. And SuperDraft Pro is really offering this unique thing where you can access these free contests. If you click on my link, you'll get sent to the screen. You can go to here. They're offering 4 different super passes. You have the free and fun super pass, the basics pass, the premium pass, the elite pass, all of the above. Fantastic options. I have the elite pass, but what's unique about this is not only do you get these free games, you can win trips to Vegas. They partnered with Caesars Sportsbook now. They're giving out a bunch of giveaways, but also they are giving you the ability to essentially start your own home business. If you're looking to make more money, I would highly recommend checking this out. If you go ahead and click on it, you'll see you've been referred by me. You can become a player where you only play in these games that I'm talking about for free. You get these exclusive contests. Would highly recommend you check that out, though, because you can win your money back really quick. But you can become a coach through my referral link for only $40 annually. You can refer people and get your own link. So you probably see YouTubers do it all the time. They make money by, using these referral links. They're sponsors. I'm doing it right now. It says on all my videos, paid advertising, being fully transparent about it. But when you join my team for that $40 enrollment fee, you can become a coach and you can get your own referral link and make your own commissions based off referring people, having fun, playing sports, playing DFS. It's really fun. It's easy to convince people to sign up, and you can kind of start your own home-based business. So SuperDraft Pro, guys, if you haven't checked it out, check it out using my link in the chat. Check it out using my link in the description. Really, really cool opportunity to sign up over here. If you have any questions for me, you can certainly reach out to me via email, DM, text. It doesn't really matter. I'm all in on this SuperDraft Pro thing, so excited to be partnering with them. Check it out, guys. And let's get back to the breakdown here. We have Memphis taking on Dallas, next game on the slate. Antoine says, who would you say is today's chalk? I would say today's chalk is going to be mostly loading up on those 2 fast-paced games. I mean, they really stand out. So a 235 over-under for the Atlanta Hawks, Charlotte Hornets game, and a 236 over-under for the Brooklyn Nets, Minnesota Timberwolves game. Naturally, people are going to gravitate towards those games because they're the highest-paced games on the slate. So I think those pieces, the high-usage pieces in those games, are really going to be where the chalk falls today. But I got to be honest with you, I think it's good chalk. If anything, I would be fading. We'll talk about it, but once we get to the Brooklyn Nets Minnesota Timberwolves game, the usage is much more condensed within those two teams, whereas a Charlotte Hornets team, the usage is a little bit spread out thin with, LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, Miles Bridges. So if anything, I'd be limiting my exposure to the Charlotte side in that game, loading more up on the Atlanta side of that game, and then loading up on the more heavy usage pieces in the Brooklyn Nets Minnesota Timberwolves game. Because if people are really going to load up on all those Charlotte pieces, I think there's going to be a couple of them that fail. I think you can play 2-3 pieces, don't get me wrong. But if people are going to play like Ball, Rozier, Hayward, Bridges, all 4 of those guys in the same lineup, chances are one of those guys is going to fail. So that would be my way of getting exposure to those games, but kind of diversifying it a little bit more. And then, of course, the shorthanded teams. We talked about Miami being shorthanded, getting some exposure to Jimmy Butler, getting exposure to a Max Struss, getting exposure to a Gabe Vincent. And on the Chicago side, same thing. Getting exposure to the DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic side, with there being no Levine, Lonzo Ball, and a tremendous matchup against Orlando. Maybe some of those pieces go a little bit lower owned than they should be because of these high up-paced games. But, I mean, they're still going to be in a fantastic spot where all the usage is flowing towards them. So I'm going to be really targeting the guys with the highest usage. And those are the guys. So would highly encourage you to do so. Memphis taking on Dallas. Once again, another game where we're dealing with some injuries. There's no Desmond Bane, no Dylan Brooks on the Memphis side. So what does that mean? What have we seen with those guys being out? We've seen a lot of Jaren Jackson Jr. and a lot of Ja Morant. So would highly recommend you load up on some Jaren Jackson Jr., load up on some Ja Morant. And I sound like a broken record, but the truth of the matter is, in order to get to the top of these tournaments tonight, you're going to have to play guys on teams that are dealing with injuries, that are getting a bump up in usage, a bump up in minutes, etc. These guys that are playing on teams with fully healthy teams, such as the other side in this game, we have Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic. They're going to be far less priorities for me outside of their price tag if it's low. I mean, Kristaps Porzingis is priced very reasonably here at a 7.4 price tag. So I'd be willing to go there, but we also have, we have Jaren Jackson Jr. at 6'5" in the same game with them dealing with no Desmond Bane and no Dylan Brooks, who's going to get a much bigger bump up in usage. So I'd much rather play a Jaren Jackson Jr. And the same can be said like a Tobias Harris at 7'2". We talked about the Philadelphia 76ers dealing with their injuries. No Matisse Thybulle, no Danny Green, no Seth Curry. That's a big, big deal. So I would much rather be targeting those teams that are shorthanded than forcing these other guys in my lineups where their teams are fully healthy. So Kristaps Porzingis, decent play for me today. Luka Doncic, decent play for me today. Am I going to be having a ton of exposure to them or this Dallas side overall? No, I would highly recommend that you don't either. So I'm going to be really loading up on those teams that are shorthanded, and on this team, it all starts with, of course, and the thing is, there's no Tyus Jones, there's no Kyle Anderson, there's no Dylan Brooks, there's no Desmond Bane, and now we're dealing with Brandon Clark and Steven Adams both being listed as questionable. So there could be even more value opening up here on the Memphis side if these guys are indeed ruled out. We're going to be taking a much harder look to an Xavier Tillman, a Killian Tilly. I think Xavier Tillman would become a fantastic value play if these guys are ruled out. Looking at the Memphis Grizzlies so far in the season and their overall fantasy point production, you can see Xavier Tillman on a permanent basis putting up 0.94 DK points per minute. That is phenomenal stuff. So if indeed those guys are ruled out at a 3-1 price tag, he's going to be great. Jarrett Culver at only 3K, 0.91 DK points per minute becomes a absolute smash play as well. Tyus Jones being out, John Conchar is going to become a much better play at a 4-4 price tag with 0.83 DK points per minute. And you could be taking a much harder look to a D'Anthony Melton as well at 1.02. I know he's not directly correlated with those guys, but he is directly correlated with Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane. So, I mean, the usage is going to be absolutely through the roof for this Memphis Grizzlies side with all these guys being out. If these guys are out, this is big news. So if you can at all, keep some flexibility in your lineups. This game kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So if we don't get the news before the 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, giving yourself some flexibility would, of course, really benefit you, because then you can go down to some of these guys that I talked about, like a D'Anthony Melton, like an Xavier Tillman, who are going to get a ton of usage, a big bump up here. So would highly encourage you to be allowing some flexibility. Right now, we know regardless of what happens, Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant are going to be absolute smash plays for me in this one tonight. As far as an over-under in this one, it's a 218.5 over-under. So once again, I have a lot less interest in targeting the Dallas Mavericks side of this game. Have a lot of interest in targeting the Memphis Grizzlies side, though. John Morant, John Conchar, Zaire Williams, Jaren Jackson. If Steven Adams and Brandon Clark are ruled out, that's going to make Jarrett Culver, D'Anthony Melton, and a Killian Tilly and an Xavier Tillman fantastic plays. So make sure you're keeping your eyes on this injury news. Make sure you're adjusting to it, and whoever starts for the Memphis Grizzlies, really going to like them with their being shorthanded. And they're underpriced. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. is 6'5". This guy easily has 50-plus fantasy point upside. The only issue with him is he loves to hack, so he will hack. He will get himself in foul trouble. We saw that last time out, 4 personal fouls, lost some minutes. He only played 28 minutes, whereas he could have played in the mid-30s if he can just stay out of foul trouble. But the bottom line is, if you're playing in tournaments, the upside is there to where you should be prioritizing him. And I'm willing to take a risk on a guy that has 50-plus fantasy point upside at only a 6'5" price tag. So that's where I'm coming from. Certainly keep your eyes on that Memphis news. Right now, we know regardless, we're going to be loading up on some John Morant, some Jaren Jackson, and really going to like those guys. Detroit taking on Denver. Next game on the slate as far as a total in this one. This game comes in with a 217 over-under. It's a 12-point spread in favor of Denver. Denver's expected to win this game very easily, and this is going to be one of the games that I have the least amount of interest in. It's not a high total. It's expected to be a blowout. For that reason, Denver's probably not going to get their full allotment of minutes. Paying up for Nikola Jokic is typically a priority for us because of how good he is. We've seen him put up 72, 93, and 69 DraftKings points the last 3 times out. For me on this slate tonight, he's not going to be nearly as much of a priority. We talked about all these other teams being short-handed. Really not getting too intrigued to be going to a Nikola Jokic for that reason. If anything, you could run it back more so on the Detroit side with the Cade Cunningham being very cheap at 7.6. We'll talk about FanDuel next. FanDuel is just really refusing to adjust Cade Cunningham's price tag, so he's been someone we've been loading up on there over there on FanDuel. And maybe they did adjust it. I kind of want to go step by step here as far as covering DraftKings first, but he's the one guy you would be looking to on the Detroit side. And outside of him, I got to be honest, I really just don't think there's too many interesting options in the Detroit-Denver game. Just looking at it overall, we did get confirmation that Kelly Olynyk entered health and safety protocol, so there's going to be some more minutes to go around on the Detroit side. And for that reason, maybe a few of these guys are going to be interesting. But overall, my projections, like the very first guy that I'd be looking to in this game, and practically the only one, with there being no Kelly Olynyk, would be a Trey Lyles at 4.6. I think Trey Lyles' usage goes up, his minutes goes up at a 4.6 price tag. He's priced very reasonably. Also on Isaiah Stewart. But other than that, I'm really not too intrigued here. And I think Trey Lyles is my favorite option by a pretty large margin. And outside of him, I don't think this is the game that you really want to be targeting. So it's Trey Lyles or nothing for me in this one for the most part here. You could, of course, be taking some targets to some guys on the Denver side of things if the game does indeed turn into a blowout. Maybe taking a little bit of a pivot to some guys on the bench like Bones Highland at 3.7, a Bryn Forbes at 3.1. The new acquisition I think could be really interesting actually. He'd probably be my favorite play from this game on the Denver side of things, just from a tournament play aspect at 3.1. If we see him go out there and play, like 30 minutes in a blowout or something, that could really, really pay off for you in your tournament lineups. So that would be the approach there. But outside of that, not too intrigued. Brooklyn taking on Minnesota. This is going to be the second big game on the slate. The 236 over-under. And what's fantastic about this game and what I'm really excited to talk about here is the usage is very condensed. We know exactly where all the usage is going. So on the Brooklyn side, I believe Nicholas Claxton got ruled out. He's still being listed on my screen here. But I thought we saw Nicholas Claxton get ruled out. Yeah, we did earlier in the day. Okay, so he's going to be out. So De'Aaron Sharp figures to see another start here. De'Aaron Sharp could be an interesting option in a fast up-paced game at only a 4.4 price tag. But also, I think that makes LaMarcus Aldridge a lot more involved here off the bench. A lot more usage at a 5.4 price tag with there being no Nicholas Claxton. I do think that he's pretty interesting. But the obvious candidates for me in this game, and who I'm really looking to, is on the Minnesota side. Really standing out to me is Anthony Edwards. He's only 7.1 on this slate tonight. I think that price tag is too cheap for a game environment like this. And he's the cheapest of the big three of Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, who I really have interest in all of these guys. All the usage flows through these three guys in the offense. D'Angelo Russell, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Anthony Edwards. So really want to be loading up on those three on their side of things. And then on the Brooklyn side, all the usage is flowing through a Kyrie Irving and a James Harden. So I think playing these five guys makes a lot of sense on this slate tonight. I think their upside is fantastic. And they really aren't competing with anyone else in the rotation for usage like we talked about in some of these other games, like a Charlotte Hornets team. It's much more solidified as the ball is going to them. The scoring is going through them. They have a lot more upside. So for me, that's the big discrepancy between targeting, for instance, some secondary Charlotte options and just loading up on this Brooklyn-Minnesota game, loading up on the Atlanta side of things, considering they're dealing with some more injuries. And for that reason, it's going to make these guys really stand out to me. Love paying up for James Harden. I talked about not really wanting to go to a Nikola Jokic because that game's slower pace and expect it to be a blowout. James Harden is the guy in the price range that I want to be going to. Favorite pay-up option, love James Harden. Love Kyrie Irving. Love Karl-Anthony Towns. Love D'Angelo Russell. Love Anthony Edwards in this game. You can make an argument that only playing two of the big three of Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards makes the most sense, and I would tend to agree with you. Probably going to have limited upside for all three of them, but two of them should certainly be able to get there. And honestly, this is a type of game environment where I'd be willing to go all three. It could be contrarian. Typically speaking, on paper, you are negatively correlating yourself a little bit. Of course, when one guy's scoring a bucket, the other can't. When one guy's grabbing a rebound, the other can't, etc. on the same team. So a typical rule of thumb is to not get too much exposure to one team. So for that reason, wouldn't blame you if you don't want to go all in there. But really makes a lot of sense to be getting exposure there. And Patrick Beverley is listed as questionable in this one. So if he's indeed out, Jalen Noel and Malik Beasley are going to be getting a lot more minutes, become really interesting options for me in this one as well. Jalen Noel is a fantastic fantasy point per minute producer at only a 3.6 price tag, pulling up the Minnesota Timberwolves as far as their per minute production on the season. And looking at how these guys produce, you can see Jalen Noel on the season on a permanent basis, putting up 1.09 DK points per minute. Really good stuff. Malik Beasley, 0.79. They'd become great options. And then, of course, you take Patrick Beverley out of the equation, who's putting up 1 DK point per minute. That's going to funnel even more usage to an Anthony Edwards, a D'Angelo Russell, and a Karl-Anthony Towns in the starting lineup, who are all putting up over 1.1 DK points per minute. So Makes a lot of sense to be getting a lot of exposure here to the Minnesota side, to the Brooklyn side. Would highly encourage you to do so, and I will certainly be doing so myself. Last game on the slate, we have Utah taking on Golden State. Who are your favorite Hawks today? Brizzy, we will retouch that. I'm going to go over this last game, and then I'm going to follow back to the questions. Same for you, Asaf. I promise I will answer those for you. And let's just talk about this last game first. So there's no Donovan Mitchell. There's no Draymond Green in this one tonight, which, of course, is going to give a big bump up. The only problem is here, it's a 221 over-under. Both these teams are very, very good defensively, so it's a little bit scary for me to want to be going here too much. Looking at the Utah defense and the Warriors defense, the Golden State Warriors are number 1 overall in points per possession rank. The Utah Jazz are number 12, so both right around top 10 teams in defense, and for that reason, it's a little bit scary to be getting too much exposure here. However, with there being no Donovan Mitchell and possibly no Rudy Gobert, it could become pretty interesting. Hassan Whiteside is listed as questionable as well with his conditioning, so once again, this is a spot where if you leave some flexibility in your lineup, you could be loading up. We also have a Bojan Bogdanovic being listed as probable, so I would expect him to be in. If there is no Rudy Gobert in this one, going to be an even bigger bump up to a Bojan Bogdanovic, to a Mike Conley, to a Jordan Clarkson, who already received a bump up with there being no Donovan Mitchell in this one. So I'd certainly be willing to get some exposure to these guys. Obviously, they're going to grade out as great plays. Just not quite as good of a game environment as some of these other spots that we've talked about on the slate. So for that reason, they're not quite grading out as good of plays as these other guys that we've talked about so far. They're still good plays for me. They're just following a little bit behind those other guys. Joe Ingles at 4.5, I think really stands out as a great value in this one once again. He was a great value that last time out with this team dealing with injuries. I think he's somewhere you could be looking to again. But once again, it's a question of, is the game environment enough to really, encourage you to be really targeting this when we have some other ones that are a lot better. So I'd be going a little bit light on this game overall in comparison to the rest of the slate, I feel. I'm not sure if people are going to be loading up on the Jordan Clarksons, Mike Conleys of the world, but I'm not quite as intrigued. We're going to see Klay Thompson return in this one as well for the Golden State Warriors side, which is going to cut into the usage of some of the guys I had a lot more interest in last time, like a Jordan Poole, like an Andrew Wiggins, with Klay Thompson being back. Not going to make those guys nearly as good of plays. I mean, he even affects Kevon Looney from a usage aspect, believe it or not. So for me, mostly looking to get Utah Jazz exposure. On the other side, I'm not too interested. So that's kind of where I'm going to be going in this one. And that's an overall game-by-game breakdown, guys. We're going to talk about FanDuel as well. If you have any questions, please do ask them in the chat. And if you've enjoyed the stream, guys, we got 28 people in here, only 15 likes. Trying to get that like count up. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Do greatly appreciate it, guys. And if you have any questions, please do ask them in the chat. I promise I will get to them. Who are your favorite Hawks plays today? Well, if you could tell me which website you're playing on and which format, that does help me if you're playing on FanDuel or DraftKings, and whether you're playing in tournaments or cash. I'm going to assume you're playing on DraftKings. My favorite options on the Hawks are going to be Trae Young, Clint Capella. I'm sorry, not Clint Capella. Clint Capella is out. He's limited, so I want to go with John Collins there. Let me get this straight. I just said two wrong things. Okay, Clint Capella is in, but he's on a minutes limit, which is going to give John Collins more usage and more minutes at the center position. He'll have more rebounding upside. So for that reason, I really like getting some John Collins exposure. To clarify, sorry, Clint Capella is on a minutes limit, so that's where I'm going there. And my other two options are going to be DeAndre Hunter and Kevin Huerter. So those are my four favorite Hawks. Those are the guys I'd really be looking to, and those are the guys that I'm really liking on this slate tonight. Ashley says, John Collins or Tobias Harris. That's really close for me. I'm going to go with John Collins just because the game environment's a lot better. Looking at the over-unders in this game, it's a 235 over-under for the Charlotte Hornets Atlanta Hawks game. Looking at the Philadelphia 76ers, it's only a 222.5 over-under. So I really do like both of those plays, but John Collins takes the cake for me there because of the game environment. It's a faster up-paced game. So I'll go there. Trey Lyles or Kevon Looney. I'd be willing to take a risk on Trey Lyles. I think Trey Lyles is kind of blowout-proof in this spot. And I think that he's kind of an interesting tournament play. I'm not really sure if other people are going to be on him. But with there being no more Kelly Olynyk in this rotation, I think he could see a big bump up in minutes and usage. And his price tag is really, really cheap with that being said. So I like some Trey Lyles tonight. Matthew says, lock of the night on DK. I don't have an official lock of the night, Matthew. I don't know if you watch my content typically I'm guessing you do because you know the lock of the night segment. So I don't have an official lock of the night. If I had to give you one on the fly on DraftKings that I really, really like, that's really tough. There's so many good options. I don't really want to do that. Gordon Hayward is listed as doubtful. Okay, that's a big piece of news. That is interesting. So that's going to give a big bump up to the Charlotte Hornets side of things. So yeah, Gordon Hayward is expected to be out. What does that mean? That means that all these Charlotte pieces that we talked about maybe not being too interested in because the minutes are spread thin become really great options. Miles Bridges, LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and PJ Washington, as well as Kelly Oubre, all get a big bump up here with there being no Gordon Hayward. So that's a big piece of news. So yeah, much more willing to play Kelly Oubre and PJ Washington now, and much more willing to get more exposure to that Charlotte Hornets side of things. It's going to become a lot easier for these guys to get through there now. But yeah, Matthew, lock of the night, man. If I had to pick one lock of the night, I don't know, man. There's so many good plays in this slate tonight. It's really tough. I tend to lean towards one of the Brooklyn Nets pieces in that Minnesota Timberwolves game. James Harden and Kyrie Irving, they have a 116 implied team total. All the usage is really flowing through those two guys. And I really like Kyrie Irving at his 9.4 price tag at a discount. But then you factor in you have like a Terry Rozier at 7.7, who's even cheaper in a fast up-paced game environment. This is a tough lock of the night for me. I can't really limit it down to one player. I could give you a lot of really good plays is the thing, so it's easy. So I could just throw out one of my top plays and tell you he's a lock, but I don't really like doing that when I don't have the segment officially done. But yeah, if I had to give you one guy as my lock of the night, I don't know. I guess I'll go with a Kyrie Irving at 9.4. He's at a discount to James Harden. He's still getting a bunch of usage. His price tag is cheaper. And he's in a fast up-tempo game where we know James Harden and Kyrie Irving are going to get all the usage. But guess what? The same can be said for DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic, who are in the Chicago game taking on Orlando. And the same can be said for the Memphis side of things, a Ja Morant and a Jaren Jackson, who are getting a bunch of usage and a bunch of minutes now, with there being no Desmond Bane and Dillon Brooks. I mean, maybe Ja Morant's an even better play at 9.6 because he doesn't have to share usage with James Harden, and he's getting even more usage. So that's a tough question to answer tonight, man. I think you should really like your lineups regardless, though. So that's a good thing. Just mix and match these guys. Make sure you're using your salary cap. It's most effectiveness. Mixing in those cheap plays that I talked about, like on the Atlanta Hawks, getting these pay-up options on these other teams, and I think you're really going to be liking your lineup. So. All right, let's talk about some FanDuel. Before we do, guys, if you did not know, I do offer premium content over here on Patreon. I want to really give a shout out to my current Patreon members. I've been meaning to do this, but I really want to be putting their names up on the screen and just thanking them for all the support, giving them a shout out. So for all of my current Patreon members, A-Dub, Adam, Anthony, Asif, I'm sorry if I think it's Asaf. I feel like I always pronounce your name wrong, so I'm sorry, man, but I appreciate your support. I know you're always in the chat. I know you're a current Patreon member of mine. If you could somehow type out the proper pronunciation on your name, I feel bad because I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Brian, Cody, Josh, K-Ped, Michael, Mike, Patrick, Renard, Smoothie, Tap My Life, Timothy, and Tucker. Thank you for all of you guys supporting my content. And thank you to everyone watching the stream right now. If you're enjoying this, take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. It really does mean a lot to me. It's going to help me grow this channel. I have a lot going on in my life with work and all of that stuff. But want to make sure that I am putting as much effort into this as possible, and anytime that you leave a like or comment or all that stuff, it helps support my content. And I want to be thanking all of you guys that are supporting it right now. For those of you that haven't joined the team, would honestly really appreciate it if you did, but also it's a lot cheaper than this other stuff around the industry. I've been looking at these price tags around the industry. Everything else, they're charging like $50 a month for the premium content. You can hop in right now for this $19.99 price tag. You get the premium NBA projections, NBA data sheet, player stats, team stats, play contact stats, core plays, all of that stuff. So once again, thank you to my current Patreon members. Really do appreciate it. I want to make sure that I'm putting your names up on the screen one more time. And thank you guys. Really do appreciate all the support. And hopefully you appreciate the shout out. If there's anyone that doesn't want their name on the screen because they don't want their name being revealed to the public, you can give me a message on Patreon. But I tend to think that you guys appreciate the shout out rather than not wanting your names on the screen. But thank you. And let's get back to the questions. Let's get back to the slate here. It looks like we have another question in the chat. Max asks, favorite value plays on FanDuel? Well, we're going to talk about FanDuel right now. So let's talk about it. FanDuel, favorite value plays. I'll answer your question before we even get into the breakdown. My favorite value plays on FanDuel. Cole Anthony at 5.5 is my favorite value play. That's just a really cheap price tag for a guy that has been producing at such a high rate all season. I know he's been bad as of late, but he's seen his price tag just absolutely tank down to 5.5. That's really, really cheap and something that I would certainly want to be taking advantage of. So he grades out as the top value play for me there. I really like Tyrese Maxey and Furkan Korkmaz on the Philadelphia side with them dealing with all those injuries. Philadelphia, there's no Matisse Thybulle, there's no Danny Green, there's no Seth Curry. So Tyrese Maxey at a 5.9 price tag, really grading out to me as a fantastic value play on FanDuel. Gabe Vincent at 5K with the Miami side dealing with all those injuries is another guy that really stands out to me as a really good value over here on FanDuel. So, yeah, there's some of my top value plays for you on FanDuel right off the bat. Just looking at my sheets real quick, my projections. Those would be some of the top value plays that I would be looking to. But let's talk about it overall. We talked about DraftKings. We talked about the fastest game environments. Let's just talk about who's grading out as a really good play over here for me. Anthony Edwards, I really like him on both websites here. He's really cheap on both, but on FanDuel, he's even cheaper. He's only 6.8 in that huge total game, over a 235, over under. Only 2 games can be said for that on this slate. It's a Minnesota-Brooklyn game and the Atlanta-Charlotte game at 235 and 236. Of course, really going to be looking to load up on these games, and Anthony Edwards is the guy that's standing out to me the most at this price tag. Really going to like him over here on FanDuel. Speaking of those games, I really like targeting LaMelo Ball and Kyrie Irving, 8K and 8.9 respectively. Both guys, once again, in that fast up-tempo environment. Both guys really good fantasy point per minute producers. Kyrie Irving does have point guard and shooting guard eligibility, so you can use those point guard positions to load up on some of the top value plays, some of the top usage guys we've talked about on the slate, like a Ja Morant getting a big bump up in usage, like a Trae Young in that fast environment, like a Terry Rozier, who now becomes a much better play with there being no Gordon Hayward. He's going to get even more usage, more upside. He's been phenomenal as of late, really consistent, putting up like 40-plus FanDuel points every time he takes the floor, and now you put him in this game environment and you take Gordon Hayward off the floor. He's really going to grade out as a great play for me tonight. And D'Angelo Russell at 7.6. Once again, fast up-tempo game. Both him and Anthony Edwards over here on FanDuel, really, really cheap. So I'll be loading up on them in this fast up-tempo game environment. It really makes a lot of sense for me. And they're really grading out some of the top plays for me over here on FanDuel. Tobias Harris at 7.6. Once again, we talked about him. PJ Washington at 4.8, with there being no Gordon Hayward, becomes a even better play for me at a 4.8 price tag. He's really, really cheap over here on FanDuel, so I'd certainly be willing to get a lot of exposure there to a PJ Washington. And, yeah, Kyrie or Trae Young on FanDuel. I would take Kyrie at the discount. I really like both of those. I just think Kyrie could probably match Trae Young's upside. He has the ability to, and he's a lot cheaper. So whenever I answer these questions, I always try to answer based on fantasy point, upside at their price tags. I just think taking that $1,100 discount to a Kyrie Irving makes a lot of sense, considering they kind of have similar upside for me. Patrick says, thanks for the shout out. My life says, that's me. Yeah, guys, thank you for your support. I really do appreciate all my current Patreon members. If you haven't become a Patreon member, would appreciate you guys signing up. But I wanted to make sure that I was putting this on the screen and shouting you guys out here moving forward. And obviously, if you join the KJK DFS Premium Content Team, I'll be adding your name to the list, giving you shout outs on my streams and my videos. Really do appreciate that support. So thank you. Kyrie or Trae Young, already answered that. Looks like the questions are pretty much caught up here. All right, guys, I'm going to be hanging out here for another 5 minutes before I head over to update my premium content. If you haven't become a premium content member, you can do so by visiting the link. I put it in the chat. It's down below in the description, patreon.com/KJK_DFS. You get access to all this stuff, premium NBA projections, NBA data sheet, player stats, team stats, play context stats, all that fun stuff. And if you haven't checked out the sponsor of the program, guys, Super Draft Pro, check them out. I put the link in the description. I also put the link in the chat. But if you use that link, you'll get to go. The only way you can access these free contests is if you're referred by someone that is a coach, which I am. You can also become a coach yourself and be earning commissions throughout the year referring people to play these fun DFS formatted games. So I put that in the chat as well. And check it out, guys. Really, really happy to be partnering with these guys. Excited about the future of Super Draft. They're getting into all sorts of fun stuff. They have a free sports book. They're going to be getting into some crypto stuff, some NFTs, if that's for you. I mean, they got a lot of really exciting stuff going on over there. Some of the stuff I can't quite talk about. But if you become a coach signing up through my link for a $40 annual fee, you can make your own commissions by referring people, and you'll also get access to these meetings that we have. We have business meetings every week. So I would highly encourage that you check it out. It's not every day that you can say you can start a full home-based business for only $40. And you can do that with SuperDraft Pro. So it's really, really cool. All right. AJT says, John Collins or Jaren Jackson on FanDuel. John Collins or Jaren Jackson at their price tag 7.8 and 7.4. I would be willing to take the discount to a John Collins at 7.4. Just a faster up-paced tempo, a cheaper price tag. It just kind of makes sense to take that discount and load up on the faster-paced game. And we know Clint Capella is limited in his minutes, so really making a lot of sense to me to be loading up there for sure. We got 4 minutes left, guys. Please ask any questions in the chat. Would greatly appreciate it. If you want to become a KJK DFS fan club member, you get access to my emojis and stuff in the chat as well, and you will get first priorities for your questions being answered. You can click the join button down below. It's another way of showing support, and becoming a Patreon is another way of showing support as well. And lastly, I do not forget about the people that just watch my content and hit that like button. Anything you can do for free means just as much to me. Really do greatly appreciate it. The people that are donating for my streams, doing super chats, signing up for the Patreon, all that stuff, I appreciate you. But the people that can't quite do that, don't worry. I still really do appreciate you watching this, hitting that like button. It goes a long way. It's kind of crazy how much it goes a long way with the YouTube algorithm. Someone just taking a second to hit that like button. And I promise you, I'll be here all season long to provide you with value, helping you out, making your lineups. If you feel like I provided you with value at all during this stream, hitting that like button, subscribing really does go a long way. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for watching today. Patrick says, who are your top 3 centers on FanDuel? All right, that's a good question. Top 3 centers on FanDuel. I'm going to be updating the core plays when I get off the stream, Patrick, as you know, so you'll see my top 3 core plays. But just off the top of my head right now, I really like Karl-Anthony Towns at 9.5 in that fast up-tempo game. I really like Joel Embiid at 11.2 in that Philadelphia game, of course, with Philadelphia dealing with so many guys being out. I really like Nikola Vucevic, with there being no Lonzo Ball and there being no... who else am I missing there? Lonzo Ball and no Zach LaVine, obviously. That's a big bump up there. Yusuf Nurkic is really, really cheap over here as well, though, with the Portland side being in a great match for rebounding at 8.2. I like him. Bam Adebayo at 7.7, with there being no Tyler Hero, no Kyle Lowry. He's going to get a big bump up in usage, so he's someone that certainly makes a lot of sense to me. At the center position, John Collins I'm really going to like at 7.4. LaMarcus Aldridge at 6K is a really great play now, with there being no Nicholas Claxton. I'm going to like him a lot. Mo Bamba at 5.6 I like a lot as a play at a discount. So just kind of rattling off some of the guys that I'd be looking to. I will be narrowing that down to the 3 core plays, of course, for my premium content members. If you haven't become one, every day I'm going to update this. You get the DK top 3 guard plays, FanDuel top 3 forward plays, FanDuel top 3 center plays on FanDuel and DraftKings. So that's just a little bit of a sneak peek behind the paywall for you. Those will be filled out every single day. But yeah, those are the great options, Patrick. I know you're a premium content member. I will be updating the core plays as soon as I get off the stream, which will be in 1 minute. So keep your eyes on that. Bridgie says, Vincent, Horder, Edwards, Collins, PJ Washington, Trae Young, Jackson Jr., Lyles on DK sound good. Yes, that does sound very good. I like every single one of those plays. Yeah, honestly, I can't even critique one of those plays. Typically, there's usually when people say stuff like that, there's like one guy in their lineup. I'm like, I wouldn't be too high on him. But it sounds like a killing it, man. I like that lineup a lot. All right. That is all for me, guys. I'm going to hop off the live stream. If you did enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. I'll be back tomorrow with another video upload, giving you guys my lock of the night. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one. I'm out of here. Peace out. Bum, 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 bum.